Good evening and welcome to the Organizer Coach. My name is Tammy O'Neill. I am an ADHD coach and a professional organizer that specializes in ADHD, chronic disorganization, hoarding, and senior move management. Tonight, we're going to be talking about time management and the distracted student. I thought this was interesting. I'm working with several students getting back into the fall and getting back into school, and I'm seeing this as a consistent theme of time management. And mom and dad are saying, Tammy, what do we do? How can we help our kids? We don't want to do the homework. We don't want to be a helicopter parent, but oh gosh, we feel like we have to be in there all the time, right? Well, it got me to thinking, and I thought, I have just spent a week in West Virginia with my grands, and they have, this was the first week that they had returned to school, and my son was recovering from pneumonia and COVID, and my daughter-in-law was on a business trip out of state. And so they had asked me to come in and babysit. And this is a whole different realm. They've been in summer mode, right, for the last 3 months. And now it's time to get back in gear. And especially with my oldest grandson starting 5th grade, they're wanting him to use a planner and remember and kind of manage his time and figure out what the homework is and how it's going to get from point A to point B. And so to say it was an interesting time because this is transition time. And even though they're in a private school, a private Christian school, the demands are very strong. And so I've noticed this is a consistent theme, not only with my grandchildren, but with the clients that I'm working with, my coaching clients, as young as 8 years old through adults. And time management applies to everything that we do in life. And a lot of it, I like to refer to it also as energy management, right? Because it is dependent on our energy and how involved we can be. How can we engage ourselves? Okay, so this is very this is a widespread theme, and I'm excited to share with you tonight about the time management and the distracted student. And it's very common when I'm working with individuals with brain-based challenges. And brain-based could be ADHD, it could be on the spectrum, autism, on the spectrum, could be traumatic brain injury, etc., because it all has to do with the wiring in our brain. So just a little bit background. You can contact me, of course, at theorganizercoach.com or my phone number, 304-834-5678. And I can be reached through email, and that is Tammy at theorganizercoach.com. Okay, so just a little bit of background. I did mention to you I'm a certified coach, ADHD specialization, and I also am a professional organizer that specializes in this. I'm a parent trainer, a certified parent trainer, and a student success coach. I am a firm believer of knowledge is power. And the more that we can teach our kiddos about how the brain is wired and help them understand and embrace any differences that they have, to embrace it, to move forward. I'm a big, big go on that. So yes, educationally wise, I have certifications in different places, and then also business and communications and degrees. I'm a mom of 2 adult sons and 5 grands, and between Jim and I, we have 9 and a grand dog. So we are blessed. We've been in Grapevine, Texas now for 7 years, and we love it. Mountain Mama at heart, originally hailed from West Virginia. So a little bit about why work with me. Again, I have the coaching, and I integrate the coaching skills with organizing, but I also do individual coaching and individual organizing. So it just depends on what you're needing. I offer a free 20-minute consult, and you can schedule on my website. You just click on the link on the contact number, and I work with your brain type. I work with you, not against you. And I think that's very, very important. That's key for me when I'm working with individuals that have brain-based challenges. To understand how the brain works and to set up systems and structures that honor that. So, and of course, all sessions are client directed. You are in complete control of this. I will never tell you. Coaching is not therapy. I do work with many therapists and psychiatrists, psychologists, the mental health community. I do work very closely with them, and I'm referred patients of theirs to add an extra support, and that's what the coaching is. So, want to know, of course, what are some talking points for tonight? We want to know what is focus, and how does time management play into focus? Well, we're going to find out. It has a huge impact on focus, has a huge impact on time management. We're going to figure out what the causes of distraction and disorganization are. What are fears and procrastination, and how does that tie in to time management and student distraction? Okay, we're going to look at super solution also. So here's something I want you to understand, that people with ADHD, they operate differently. Okay, doesn't mean that it's bad. In fact, again, I go back to embracing the superpowers. And every individual that has ADHD or any type of brain-based challenge, these superpowers are, that's how they're wired. The brain is wired differently than a neurotypical brain. And so it's important to understand how the brain is wired, to understand the chemical levels, which we call the dopamine, when the dopamine hits, and how is that going to affect our time management and the energy levels. So sometimes you might think that your student with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is ADHD, that they might not seem to be listening, right? Or that they're paying attention to you when you're talking, okay? Or to the teacher. And actually, there's so many wonderful resources available for the classroom teacher and also for the student to help engage. So ADHD is not just it's not just the inability to pay attention. It's really the inability to control the attention, all right, and how and when that gets done. So, what are some causes of distraction? So we notice statistics have shown us that people with ADHD have what's a lower level brain arousal. Okay, and that, which in turn, what that does, it decreases the ability to screen out, to filter distractions like noise in the hallway, right? When our kiddos are at school, there's all kinds of distraction. There's the open window, and maybe there's construction going on across the street, or maybe the birds outside are singing, or maybe the class across the hallway is having a music fest and they're singing and dancing. These are all distractions. However, it's not only external distractions, there's internal distraction. That's that inner feelings and the thoughts that are going on in the head. So individuals with ADHD, they have a difficult time tuning out those distractions. And that's when we were talking earlier about some of the resources available. The fidget toys, I'm sure you've seen, or maybe you've experienced some of this, but they're wonderful. Sometimes I have my clients chew gum, and this is written into their 504 plan or their IEP, that they're allowed to chew gum because that's engaging the brain cells, and they're actually paying a lot of attention, all right, because it's doing something, it's manipulating the brain cell. So what we need to understand is that more than likely, I won't say all the time, but more than likely, Johnny and Susie, it may appear like they're not paying attention, but in reality, they want to be, okay? Very important to understand that because they want to pay attention, okay? So have you ever said to your kiddos, so, okay, Earth to Johnny, Earth to Susie, woo-hoo, pay attention. Well, guess what? Or have you ever said, hey, why don't you ever listen? Why don't you ever listen to me? Well, they are listening. It's just filtered differently in the brain cells. Okay. So and they're not doing this intentionally. Again, it's the method in which the brain wires are connected. Okay. So ADHD brains are naturally low on dopamine and neuropinephrine, and I cannot pronounce that very well. What it does, these two chemicals control the brain center, and they control the brain arousal and also the attention level. So there's different levels of attention. And these chemicals that are in the ADHD brain, they have to be on full, just like a car. We have to have gasoline in our car in order for the car to run smoothly. Well, our brain, an ADHD brain, needs that dopamine level, okay? Another element of ADHD distraction is procrastination. And if you haven't heard Johnny or Susie say, oh, I can do it later, right? I don't have a test until Friday. I can do it later. It's no big deal. there's a reason for that, all right? Several reasons. Part of this is what we call the temporal discounting of time, okay? And what that is, it's a discounting the amount of time in which it takes. So it's placing less value on things that are further away into the future. In fact, I just finished with a coaching client prior to doing our Zoom presentation, and we were reviewing some homework that she had. And she didn't have a test until Thursday, and she didn't have a test until Friday. And here she had numerous sports practices that she's involved in, and that was her focus. And so once we sat down and looked at the calendar and worked backwards, then she could see how much time that she had remaining for Friday, from now until Friday, to study for 2 major tests. And it was an eye-opener, because in her mind, there was a lot of time, lots of time, okay? So, the perceived pain of blowing your deadline, that is, say maybe it's 4 weeks away, has much less power than if it were a deadline that were, say, 4 hours away. That's more immediate, okay? So you want to find yourself looking at this, and when you find your student avoiding a task out of fear, you might want to ask, Johnny, what are you concerned about? What are your fears about this test? And how painful could this actually be? And am I inflating the fear to give myself a little more time, or in permission? Okay, because again, that brain, we have to give ourselves permission. So we have to know that fear and procrastination go hand in hand. The more we fear, the more that we think we fear, the more procrastination that we're going to have. A very interesting comment when I was doing research on this. It's called The Author of the Now Habit. And Dr. Neil Fiore writes that to never look at a big project and say, I have to finish that darn thing. I have to get this done, right? Because the thought of having to finish this huge project, it's the surest way to invoke all the support, and then to remove it, and then continue the procrastination. So what we're saying is giving yourself permission to fail forward. And that's huge. That's very, very important. Thomas Edison, right? We're all familiar with Thomas Edison, an inventor, very, very intelligent man. He made 1,000 unsuccessful attempts at inventing the light bulb. 1,000. Can you imagine? He just kept doing this and doing this and doing this. And so it's interesting, when he was asked by a reporter, how did it feel to fail 1,000 times? Can you imagine? And his response, Edison's response to this question, I love it, was he didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. See what he did? He turned that negative statement around by what the reporter had made and turned it into a positive. And I love that because that's what we call the growth mindset. And that was breaking it. He broke the project down and he did a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. And he got it and he did it. He got it and he did it. So it works. And I love it that it does that. What we have to know is that by starting unfinished tasks are harder to get out of our brain than the finished tasks. All right. And there has been science and research done on this. So if you can imagine your student thinking, oh my gosh, I've got this report due and it's due at the end of the, at the end of the week, and I've got all this to do. So fear, procrastination are kicking in. So one of the things, what science and is suggested, and I've tried this with my clients, is to assign a weight to each unfinished item or task, okay, in terms of pounds. So now if you can imagine how liberating that would be. So for instance, if Johnny's got a report due on Friday and he has to have a, 1-page report and a bibliography due. So ask him, become a detective. Ask him, how much weight would you assign this? And let your student figure this out with you, right? Instead of telling him, you're asking him, okay? So you want to know when you're working with your kiddos on this, ask your students, what are some things that could help you? What are some things that can help you remove the distraction? A lot of students like to have what we call the buddy system. And it's so, gosh, you can do it on FaceTime, you can do it on Zoom, you can actually do it face-to-face with a family member. You can have your student set up a study period or study area, maybe in the kitchen while if you're preparing dinner or preparing a meal and they're on the counter. You can even put up a wall, what I call a temporary wall. And you can do that you can buy it off of Amazon. It's a portable block. And what it does, it's a portable screen, but it's called a student screen, privacy screen. And it's set up so he can have that blocked, but he can also work there knowing that you or another family member is nearby. And you can help Johnny and say, hey, Johnny, I noticed that you have math, social studies, and writing. Which subject would you like to start on? So he might say, okay, math. Great. What do you need from me to help you? Big difference, parents. What did I do? I switched it around. Instead of telling Johnny what to do, I'm asking, all right? And that's a huge difference because now the student has buy-in and their time management and their energy level is going to be a whole lot different, knowing that you're not telling them what to do, you're guiding them, you're offering them guidance on this. I hope this makes sense to you. You want to, in doing some of these focus super solutions to gain focus and time management, we talked about the privacy screen. Of course, you always want a distraction-free environment. Some students work very well with music. Now, I caution this because, again, going by studies, classical music is wonderful to listen to when you have to study. You've got, because of the rhythm that you're listening to, it has a certain beat to it, and you're not trying to figure out the words or what is being said or the theme. So that those are anything Brahms, anything Mozart. There's a whole list of music that's great for brain-based challenged individuals. There's a whole list of music that can be seen on CHADD, chad.org. And if you just type in music to study to, there's a list, plethora of resources for you. Do you want to divide and conquer? Very important. Big assignments into small chunks. And we mentioned this earlier, say with the book report. If it's book report due on Friday, then yes, you want to look at that book report and say, okay, in that book report, I have a 1-page paper and I have to have a bibliography. How many sources do you need for the bibliography? So you break it down into little bits of time, little chunks, and that's what we call chunking, because that makes it very manageable. Okay. I also suggest, and I think this is very important, kids have been sitting all day, 7, 8 hours. They get up, yes, they have some exercise in between classes if they're changing classes, and maybe they get out on the playground, maybe they got some PE, but it's different. So when they get home, I strongly recommend get a snack. Give the kids a snack, a nutritious snack, making sure that they're hydrated and they have some kind of protein in them, some kind of snack, and get them outside. Let them move. Have them run around the block, or if you've got any kind of sports equipment in your yard, a trampoline, get the bike out, let them move, because this movement, physical exercise, is great for replenishing the endorphins and that dopamine level. Absolutely necessary. Okay. Also, very important to remove the perfection. I would strongly recommend moving forward with when you're talking with your kiddos about their homework. Okay. Instead of focusing on the grade, focus on how much energy, how motivated. Wow, Johnny, that took a lot of effort on your part to capture that bibliography. And look what you did. You've looked up the bibliography, you've gotten the names, and you're ready. Way to go, Johnny. So it makes it so that the project, the assignment, is about the effort and not the grade. Because a lot of times when kids are trying and they're doing their best, but maybe they don't get that A+, right? But they're not a failure. And that's what we want to make sure is that they understand that. Do the fun stuff first. Very important to do the fun stuff. If you have, if the kiddos have a short assignment, maybe they have 5 math problems that they need to complete. Make it fun. Put it in relation to what they enjoy. If your kiddo likes sports and they've got to do math problems, connect it with something that is in sports related, and they will remember it. Trust me. I've used this technique many times. Okay. You want to You also want to understand that managing expectations, very important for kids. Let's teach our kids, one, we want to remove that perfectionism that we talked about, but managing the expectations. Very important that they understand and they can do this with less stress. By managing, also by explaining to your kiddos that by managing their expectations, distractions will be easier to ignore, and that clarity will be defined, and that they can engage in a positive mindset, not a perfectionist mindset, but a positive. Very important for that. So allow them to recognize your emotions for what it is. Whatever the emotion is, recognize it, acknowledge it, and move on. Because repeatedly dwelling on a negative emotion, it's an energy drainer, and it doesn't help the kiddos. So we are down to the wire here. So I went through this rather quickly for you about time management and the distracted students. So anything, again, if you have questions, you can reach out to me. My phone number is 304-834-5678, or you can reach me at the web on my website at theorganizercoach.com, or Tammy at theorganizercoach.com. So I look forward to hearing from you and seeing what kind of successes and what kind of questions that you may have with your students or with your kiddos. And again, remember, I do offer that free 20-minute phone consult, and I'd love to chat with you about this. Coming up in October, I will be attending an ICD conference in Chicago, Illinois, to learn more about the brain-based challenges that we face. And then in October, I'll be attending the National CHAD Conference right here in Dallas, Texas. So I'm very excited to learn more so I can share it with my clients. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll talk later.